Now, before I even dive into this question, I will admit that this is pretty intimidating. It's one of those logically complete questions which tend to be a little bit harder. The passage is long, it's science, so that can kind of scare some people because, yeah, if the science gets complicated, we feel like we're lost. This is a great example of like, yeah, if you are worried about your timing, skip this and move on. You should still bubble something, you should bookmark it, but you can always come back to a question like this if you feel like it's going to suck up too much time because there's grammar coming, there's transitions and those outline questions. Those are better use of your time. But let's take a look. We're going to obviously want to try to solve it. The way I handle these, I just read it and then I try to maybe fill in the blank in my own way, in a very simple way, if that's possible. But sometimes I don't really even know where I'm going. So let's just see and maybe make some notes as we go about things that are important. By running computer simulations of the development of our solar system, these people concluded that the sun may have been surrounded by 3 giant dust rings before the planets started to form. Okay, so 3 rings before the planets. The researchers suggest the materials in the innermost ring became the 4 planets closest to the sun. The materials in the middle ring produced the rest of the planets, and the materials in the outermost ring created the asteroids and other small bodies in the region beyond Neptune. In one simulation, the researchers delayed the initial formation of the middle ring, causing oversized super-Earths to begin developing from the innermost ring. Oh my gosh. The researchers therefore hypothesized that. Okay. Wow. All right. I don't even know where to go with this. So they're hypothesizing something. It has to do with delaying the initial formation of the middle ring. So late middle ring leads to big Earths. Right? That's kind of what they're saying. I mean, that's a simplification, I guess. Maybe I'm missing some sciencey piece of this, but it's kind of what it says. All right, so let's see if anything relates to the timing of the ring formation, the size of the Earths. I don't really know what's going to be in this blank. I'm not really filling the blank here. I want to be clear. I'm not filling in the blank. I'm summarizing what came just before it because it was given in a way that was too confusing for me. And I don't want to keep rereading this confusing sentence. I'd rather it be in a sentence that I understand so I can reread that. So let's see what we get from this question. This seems hard. A, the middle, so they're hypothesizing that the middle ring formed earlier in the solar system's development than the initial simulations suggested. Okay, the middle ring formed earlier. Well, I guess, but the initial simulations were correct, right? By running computer simulations, these people conclude the sun may have been surrounded by 3 giant rings. Okay, so the middle ring formed earlier in the solar system's development than the initial simulation suggested. But the initial, again, I think the initial simulations were correct. I don't know. This one seems weird. We're talking about the middle ring being late, so I don't know why we're making it early now. That seems weird. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at B. The timing of the initial formation of the middle ring played an important role in determining the eventual size of the Earth. Okay, well, the late middle ring meant big Earths, so the timing of the ring affects the size. Like, that's basically what B is saying. That's basically what I said. But notice what choice B is doing is it's removing the specifics of the timing, right? It's not saying early, middle, or early or late is better or worse. It's just saying the timing is important. I think that's going to be the answer. This is nice and weak. It's hitting all the main ideas that I kind of had in that summary, right? About timing, about size. So yeah, I think that's probably it, but we got to read more. I'm still confused. C, if the formation of the outermost ring had occurred earlier in a simulation, all the planets would have become super-Earths. Well, this is just a good example of a conclusion we're not allowed to make, an assumption that we're not allowed to have. They didn't mess with the outermost ring, right? They messed with the middle ring, and that affected the innermost ring, but the outermost ring in their little hypothesis was not mentioned at all. So I don't know what would happen, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm not an astronomer. I have no clue. So I'm not allowed to make these kinds of assumptions or conclusions. Notice what they're doing though, right? The blank is kind of setting you up to maybe like make assumptions, but we're still trying to always relate back to what the text explicitly is saying. So this feels like we're venturing too far away. This was not brought up. They did not talk about what the outermost ring does and its effect on the other rings. So this just seems just like a bad direction that we're going. Let's look at D. The innermost ring actually formed into all the planets in our solar system, not just the 4 closest to the sun. Well, they didn't say that either, right? I mean, why would we conclude that? They're basically just saying that when they messed with the timing of the middle ring, it affected the size of the planets, but it doesn't affect how many there are or anything like that. This just seems random. I don't know why we would make it all the planets. That, again, maybe there's a scientific reason that someone could justify, but I don't know it. I'm not smart enough. I don't care. It's got to be in the lines. So B is definitely the answer here. Notice that I didn't really ever eliminate A. I was just so confused by it that I didn't know what to do with it. That's okay. You don't always have to look at an answer choice and immediately decide, yes, this is correct. No, this is definitely incorrect. Lots of time I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to wait on this and we'll see if something better comes along. That's okay. Confusion is an option. And it doesn't always mean that you're genuinely lost. It just means that you're dealing with information that maybe wasn't given to you. So don't be scared of your confusion. Just let it sit. Let it be evidence that maybe the choice is incorrect. And if you need to find, more evidence that to explain that confusion away, then you can go back to the passage, you can reread. I didn't really do that here. Mostly, again, I'm just picking B because my summary of this hypothesis, or of the thing right before the hypothesis, had to do with both the timing and the size of the rings and planets. And choice B talks about the timing and the size. And notice how it's so weak. It's so great. It played an important role. This is another thing the SAT does again and again and again, is they purposely avoid kind of like giving you a direction. They purposely avoid being specific about a conclusion, right? They could have said something more like what they said originally in the lines, that like if you make it more late, you're going to get bigger planets, right? They could have done that and given us direction. Later ring, bigger planets. But B is purposely kind of backing off and saying just, okay, early or late, it's about the timing. Big or small, it's about the size. That is very common, and that scares some people who aren't familiar with the PSAT and the SAT because they want it to be specific, because that's probably how your teachers ask you those kinds of questions in school. But this is how the SAT operates. Be okay with it. And then when you see weak answer choices that seem like they're stopping short, that's good. We'd rather it stop short than go too far. So that's a big reason I liked B from the first time I read it was basically just like barely saying anything at all. And the stuff that it was saying related back to what I said when I summarized. So at the end of the day, this ends up not being that hard of a question. I feel confused as I'm doing it. All of the passage and the choices confused me, but I'd be confident in this answer as I move on to the next question. And you should be comfortable getting over your confusion or past your confusion to get confident in your answers too.